is SG Mantashe, SG. Yeah. Come again? If you are
the conference will decide.
If you are SG Mantashe, it means you are SG for life. Okay, thank you very much. This is a conversation, and we're trying to perfect an idea that was suggested by journalists themselves. Let's talk to them. If you ask a question, we answer you. You have a follow-up. We'll give you an opportunity for that follow-up. We'll go to the next. First of all, we should welcome the parliamentary inquiry on state-owned companies that has started today. It is not competing with the Commission of Inquiry, which we're hoping will be in place quicker than later. But it is also part of a fight against corruption. The Judicial Commission of Inquiry is long overdue as well. We think that all these efforts into fighting corruption and cleaning the state is quite important. We're hoping that we would have done that with the private sector as well, because sometimes Moiponi is the editor of Sowetan. When he writes about public sector, he writes corruption. When he writes about private sector, he writes about collusion. When it is the private sector, it's collusion. When it is the public sector, it is corruption. But we must, as a country, be intolerant of corruption, generally. Secondly, we just had two conferences. The first one is the ANC Veterans League conference. We'll be meeting the new leadership of the ANC Veterans League, have a sense of how to work together and move forward. Want to congratulate all of them. New President Snugis Galala is the president of the Veterans League, and ironically a journalist by background, and we're hoping that he will not deal with that like a journalist. He will deal with that like the president of the Veterans League. But we congratulate them, welcome them. We must also congratulate Mamnazo for coming back as Secretary General of the Veterans League. That was the first conference of the Veterans League. I normally make this decision between an inaugural conference and the first conference. It's not the same. The Eastern Cape Conference, which took place, people are very sensitive about it because somebody used the term festival of chairs. And then everybody said, no, why do you use that? And say, politics is about being serious and also having fun in politics. That conference has gone past, we've received the report, we've also received a complaint, we're processing it. I know that some people go public and say, we don't recognize that PEC. And I think they are putting the cart before the horse. It's not their responsibility to recognize any PEC. The only people who will recognize that PEC will be the National Executive Committee. As long as the NEC has not made an announcement, we said, PEC, do your work, continue, steam ahead as if nothing is happening. And that's where we are with Eastern Cape. We're dealing with the Lower South Coast, which was stripped to powers alongside two other regions. And one region that has been dissolved. All we're saying is that to protect our national conference, we must not allow any PEC to run BGMs. BGMs must be run by the branch chairperson, must chair a branch general meeting. overseen by a regional deployee. The PC and any other person who's deployed, like your MPLs, should be observers in those meetings. And that talks to the question of the local standing of the KZNPC vis-a-vis the appeal. The appeal, we all agreed that we should appeal the judgment because it is a judgment that is tampering with the Constitution. That's the reason for the appeal. It is not an appeal to sustain the local stand of the PC. That is under discussion. What should happen is that we appeal the fact that the judge says if 1/3 of the branches request for an early conference, we are obliged to do so. No, it can't be. If a 1/3 request, the word used in the conference is request. That means that request goes to somebody, and that somebody is the National Executive Committee. That National Executive Committee must retain the right to say yes or no. The judgment is stripping the NEC the powers to say yes or no. A senior counsel who gave us an advice said to us, you know, if we take this charge and leave it as a precedent, it means we can have a provincial conference every year, meaning that if we go to a provincial conference, we lose it. We mobilize 1/3 of the branches to say, we want an early conference. If we have no right to say yes or no, we'll have to grant that. They go to a conference. Once that conference goes and another group loses, it may mobilize 1/3 of the branches and ask for a conference. That means we'll have a permanent stay of conferences. That's why we must appeal that judgment. And that is a separate issue to the local standing of the PC, which is an issue that is, again, challenged in court, and we are relaxed about it. The 54th National Conference preparation are afoot. I know many people ask us a question that, what about all these court cases? What will they do to the National Conference? Our starting point is that court cases are court cases, preparation for conference are preparation for the conference. That's why we say, let's stick to our guidelines. Let the branch chairperson chair every BGM, let a regional deployee oversee the BGM, and allow the PEC and other deployees to be observers in that conference. And if we do that, we are safeguarding the conference because it will not be dependent on the outcome of court cases. Nomination process has started. We have allocated delegates to provinces based on their membership. We are implementing Rule 10.1.1.1. We'll allocate delegates to branches proportionately to their paid-up membership. But every branch that is in good standing must at least have a delegate to conference. That's why we've allocated one delegate to every branch in good standing. Good standing meaning a branch that is in good standing, finish everything, comply in all respect, and a branch that is having more than 100 members, but have to still go to a biennial general meeting. That branch qualifies, but there's something outstanding. And we have allocated them and say, if you have 100 members, you'll get a delegate. If you have an additional 250, you will get another delegate. If you have another 250, you'll get a delegate. Meaning that if a branch is having 100 plus, it will get a delegate. But once it reaches 350, it will get a second delegate. And once it reaches 600, it will get another delegate. Gets 850, it gets another delegate. That's what it does. And that translate into proportional allocation of delegates to provinces according to their membership. That's it. So the nomination process started, BGMs are sitting, we don't know who is nominated, we're waiting for that. Welcome the appointment of the SABC board. We raised concerns when we saw the pronounced board and said, we know South Africa is a noisy country that pays attention on everything. It will raise a big issue about the chairperson of the board being the chairperson of the Ngema Zuma Foundation. It's an issue he has appointed, and that's an institutional appointment. But we say that issue is an issue that will be raising eyebrows. On the reshuffle of the cabinet, that's the last point I will make myself. It's a pity that Blade has been removed from that portfolio. He's a cadre of our movement. We regard him highly as the ANC. We think he's talented. He can play other roles. We're hoping that he will not resign from Parliament. He will stay there and have his energy, use that right there. Many people are having concern about, you see, Praveen is destructive now and all that. My view is that we need all those energies in Parliament to strengthen Parliament. And we're hoping that Blade will. It's a pity that he has been removed. He has done well in education. And many people don't remember that under his leadership, he has built three new universities. University of the Mpumalanga, University of the Northern Cape, and Mapocho Makgato University, a medical school. So he has built three universities. We're working towards free education for the poor. And we're hoping we'll achieve that. He has taken it through, and we're hoping that that will be completed. We want to congratulate him for the work he has done. That's it. Let's deal with questions. Oh, akuphetanga wena versus namhlanje. Okay. Phakama bhuti. Qoba. Qoba.
The ANC top six consulted by President Jacob Zuma about the latest cabinet reshuffle.
The ANC top six was informed.
And was there a discussion, or was it the ANC top six was informed and that?
The ANC top six was informed. No further question. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You say that it's a pity that the former minister is removed because of the talented man. Did you raise this with the president when he was in the top six of his plans to remove Dr. Mande? That perhaps it wouldn't be a good idea, or because he's talented, perhaps he should be kept?
One of the dilemmas you have when you deal with issues of this nature is whether you should do it in the presence of the media, because then you must give details of who says what, who says what. I don't think it's the right thing to do. Is that we're raising issues that is quite a talented person and a good cadre of our movement. That's what we're saying. I don't think we should venture into whether that was raised there and what was the answer and so forth, because if I say yes, we raised that, I would imagine that your follow-up question would be, what was the answer? The reality is that he's removed now from that portfolio, and we say it's a pity that he has been removed. My point.
The reshuffle, the ministers that have been moved around, they were appointed. one is moving it. And it's really not worried that they haven't spent a long time in their portfolio and they were starting to settle or maybe not settle in. Why would they do it? Or why would they swap the house?
Let me put it this way. I'm not going to try to be in the president's mind. Okay. We will get worried when there is a quick turnover of leadership in any institution. If you have a minister who was appointed in the last reshuffle, was it in March? April, you see. And that 3 of those ministers are moved around in October. That is a formula for instability. And therefore, it can be the correct, sustainable way of dealing with that issue. But I don't want to pretend as if I'm in the mind of the president, but that is a major issue. If we would have a choice, is that you must appreciate that there's a contradiction here of the party role, the ANC, and what the Constitution of the Republic gives prerogative to the president to do. That contradiction will have to be managed with the greatest of care, because the ANC can have a strong view on a particular matter, but if the president invokes his prerogative given to him by the Constitution, then the ANC has little space to move. Yes, please.
Like Gwede just explained it to you, in the president's prerogative to fire and hire. Were you just informed of consulting, and if there is the case where you are allowed to give input, like the case of former Minister of Finance, where you actually said the president would not remove them just based on the so-called diligence report. And maybe my second question is whether, whether the removal of ministers.
Why don't you ask one question, I answer, I'll give you a chance to ask another one. No, remember what we said about the Minister of Finance. We said, in the case of the Minister of Finance, we were consulted, okay? And we delayed that reshuffle for a number of months. It was almost definite by November 2016. We delayed that, we engaged until it was effected in April. And that is the difference between consultation and informing. Okay. Okay. Then he was removed. Leave the issue of the reason that was cited at the time, but we saw it coming. That relationship was collapsing at a faster pace. So that's the issue. And therefore, I don't want you to say it was only this and that led to his removal. We explained at the time that it is one issue that was discussed with that over and over and over. Add your follow-up question.
I'm just thinking of the relationship in the tripartite alliance, the lowest level, and this removal of minister and former minister. How will this impact your alliance?
It's obvious that it will impact negatively. The alliance relations are at their lowest at this point in time. After about 6 months, we just had an alliance secretariat meeting where we're trying to pull it together again. And this reshuffling of the general secretary of the party is going to undo some of the work that was done in that secretariat meeting. But it is not about individuals. We must invest in sustaining the alliance all the time. Madam.
I just wanted to check with regards to other portfolios.
changes in other portfolios. I mean, there have been pressing governance issues, for instance, regarding the public enterprise. Initially, we're asking how the sheets are run this one. And insofar as you are concerned as the ANC, this cabinet reshuffle, do you think it is done to strengthen the governance? I guess the main purpose of the reshuffle will be to strengthen governance. Or are there any other motives you think could be at play here? Public service and others.
I think I have answered that question, Mantashe, because there's one question. We said if it was for us, the more you keep political leaders of portfolios in place for a long time, allows people to understand that portfolio and stabilize it. Once there is a quick turnover of leadership, then there is something that is impacting negatively on the stability, first of that portfolio and then on the government. Let me tell you why I say of that portfolio and government is that the government is a function of collective effort and the ability of various team members to work together. So one person who taught me something about improving portfolios and improving institutions said to me, every time you make an appointment, you have an opportunity to appoint a person who is having superior skills to a portfolio all the time. And if you do that, you're improving that portfolio and you're improving the institution. And that's why it becomes important that our discussion should not be all the time be about moving people from portfolios, this and that and that. Stabilize the government, let the team work together, let it stay together for some time. If you make changes, it's like in a football match as a coach, when you make changes to a team, a replacement from the bench, you must always put an impact player. That's what happened when you coach a team. And now I'm sharing with you my experience as a rugby coach. Now, if you don't put an impact player, your changes lower the performance of the team. And this is the issue that worried us a great deal of changing these three ministers within 6 months. We thought that good as they may be individually, the impact of moving them around so quick may be having a destabilizing effect. And how will that be mitigated is the question that will be looked into. I must give others a chance so they don't want it. But that's
SG, have you had any conversations with SACP since the reshuffle was announced? Because, there's always been speculation around NMAS resignations by the SACP in light now of the reshuffle that could actually spread them to finally take that decision.
no, the reshuffle has just been announced. So between that and this get together, there's been no time space. So obviously we have not had a conversation with the party. Yes.
The second question is around the confidence in this government to actually do this work. I mean, following the last reshuffle, that public trust and confidence in the state was really affected. And now we're having the second reshuffle in 6 months, as you put it. How do South Africans reconcile with this when they're still at a point where they have just, following what happened in March, and the trust in cabinet, not only from South Africans, but from business as well, from investors as well? I mean, this does not bode well for a country that is desperate for investment and eradicating unemployment.
changes are always looked with suspicion because changes are always associated with loss. In April, there were 5 ministers were removed from cabinet. But the debate that was in the country was about 1 minister. I raised that thing at the time, and I thought it was unfair to other ministers who were removed to focus on 1 minister. It was quite a massive reshuffle. It had a total of 15 changes, actually. Though 5 were removed from the cabinet, the total of changes that were effected were 15. And that's why it had a massive impact on society. It is followed by this one, where there are 5 changes and 1 minister removed. And to me, it depends on the perception of society, what it means. What I know for sure, I've not spoken to the party. The party will have to do a lot of debriefing, what it means for each general sector to be removed from cabinet. Depending on their reaction, I can't predict now what is going to happen, because for every action there is a reaction. My point?
Is the end of the going to go to the Eastern Cape on Monday?
What?
Is NWC going to visit the Eastern
The officials, yes, not the NWC.
officials?
Officials.
And number 2, have you met with Minister Sisulu based on the comments that she made about you?
No. Let me tell you why I have not. Yes, let me tell you why I have not. I have not. And the reason for that is, first of all, we're in a very silly season. Silly season. Where people want to contest positions in December. To expect rationality under those circumstances would be expecting water from a rock. Okay. So from where I'm seated, I'm not expecting any rationality during this season. The second one, I thought her comment were unfortunate in the sense that he associates struggle with exile. And therefore, everybody who was internal here, who was actually in the belly of the beast, who was facing the enemy every day, who was disrupting point of production every day, was working for royal families that were cushioned from the enemy. I think that was very unfortunate in a comment, and I decided to leave that to an open debate. But what you must remember, my point, is that when you work for a royal family, you are an invisible contributor because you work for the royal family. It is only the royal family that makes a contribution. You can work for them, produce something huge, but you are an invisible contributor because you are working for them. They take the credit on your behalf because you are invisible. So I thought I must not engage in the discussion with Minister Sisulu because I think she committed a grave mistake. I don't think that is the issue. I wanted to come back and engage on the political issues raised in the run-up to conference.
How far is the ANC on organizing the alliance political council?
Yes, sir. No. It means you are not listening carefully. I say for a period of time, the alliance relations were very tense. Last week, we had our first alliance secretariat, last week. And in that alliance secretariat, we all agreed that hey, let's work for a political council before December. We agreed there. Now we've got this removal of Comrade Blade. We don't know what the direction of the party will be. And if we're still committed, we can go to that political council. But as I said, alliance relations are at their lowest. George, sakunika mva ngoba ufike kade. Yeah. Because xa ufika late ube sophakamisa isandla uzawubuza iquestion ubuze nayo ngoku busisa. Yes, George.
Actually, you got a lot of flack for some of the comments that you made, which was interpreted as you endorsing Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. Many people are saying that as a custodian of ANC administration and processes, you are not going to be impartial going to the conference because you clearly have a candidate or a favorite that you want to succeed President Jacob Zuma. I haven't heard you responding to some of those comments. And are you really supporting the President?
No. Let me tell you, George. You want me to put a disclaimer on the Deputy President, which is wrong. I'm posing questions to the ANC. Do you get my point? And those questions are political. The ANC must engage on the question I'm posing politically. Before I get to them, to remind you the questions. There's a myth that I'm a custodian. I don't know who gave me this power of being a custodian. When you go to a conference of the ANC, there are two things we do. It is the National Executive Committee of the ANC that goes to conference and organize a conference. And that NEC organizes itself into conference committees, okay, who run various aspects of the committee, logistic, registration, this. The likelihood is that I will chair the steering committee, that's all I will. But the other practical committees are run by committees of the ANC. Now, when people want to limit preparations of the ANC to one individual, they are actually running away from their responsibility, okay? Because members of the NEC have the responsibility of running a successful conference, not the SG. The NEC must run a successful conference. Now, any member of the NEC who is trying to say SG will be unbiased because he has a choice, he's making a mistake because, let me give an example. There are 6 officials. 3 of them are pending to be presidents. Where will they be when we prepare for the conference? Where will they be? One has declared unreserved support for a candidate. Left with 2. Of the 2, one put a flag on the mast of another candidate, and I am accused of putting a mast on another candidate. Then it becomes a big deal. In that NEC, 3 NEC members are pending to be president. And the NEC, it's 3 in the official, 3 in the NEC. 6 members of the NEC want to be presidents of the ANC. All of them are part of an executive committee that must prepare for conference. It's just malicious and mischievous to try and pin me down on the issue. What makes me to be accused of supporting Ramaphosa? I'm asking a simple question. An organization that is 105 years old must manage succession. You cannot have a free-for-all in the succession of an organization that is 105 years. I'm raising that as a principal issue. I've been raising it in the organization for some time now, that this thing must be managed, otherwise it can be chaos. Otherwise, we all go back to Rule 5 of the Constitution, that every member has a right to elect and be elected. You don't run an organization like that. Secondly, we say, every time succession has not been managed, we ended up in a crisis. That's why I didn't start with Deputy President and all those. I started with Pixika Isaka Seme taking over from Gwede and said, because people were irritated by Gwede was bringing working class politics into the ANC, removed the non-ceremonious 1930, elected Pixika Isaka Seme, he had the most disastrous presidency. Okay. I take it to Puma. Puma revives the ANC, it grows. Militants come back. He gets removed because he can't agree with the Youth League on the program of action. They remove non-ceremonious. They bring in Dr. Moroka to be president. You see, I normally explain it in a causal expression about Washia is panendi main with Dr. Moroka. He left the span in the field and left them. Once there was the treason trial, dissociated himself from the foot soldiers. That was a disaster. And I'm saying, where it has been managed, no disaster stability. Tambo, people are very sensitive to the word handing over. When you take off a metaphor of a relay, you hand over a baton. It's a metaphor. It's not handing over, it's a metaphor. Handed the relay baton to Mandela in Durban, stability. Mandela handed over the succession baton to Mbeki in my gang, stability. Comrade Mbeki resisted handing over that baton. They had to contest with Comrade Zuma, disaster. Not after Polokwane, in the run-up to Polokwane, and Polokwane was a point of rupture. Okay, it's a point of rupture because we do things that should not be done by an old movement. And my question that I impose that makes me to be a panda of Ramaphosa is I'm saying, if you are overlooking a sitting deputy president, we must have the decency of explaining to one, the organization, then to society that, no, Lord Deputy President, I got competent, ufele up, nalap, unes weaknesses, and therefore, we don't think is right, then the ANC will be at peace with itself. Okay? Rather than just throwing him there in a pool. And I'm saying, if you do that with the experience of President Zuma must have the experience that inform him that it is correct to actually manage that succession smoothly. And that is the issue. If that is pending for Ramaphosa, unfortunately it happens that Ramaphosa is the deputy president today. In the run-up to Polokwane, we used the same argument. It was President Zuma who was the deputy president at the time. Okay? So, if I'm deputy president after December, in the unlikely event of me becoming a deputy president, I will expect the same argument to be put forward when we go to the next question. But what happens is that when many people have interest, they want to be president, when in the NEC you have 6, any comment that appears to be favoring one candidate is blown out of proportion because people are talking about their interests. Simple. Okay, George. That's a sufficient answer. Okay. Okay. Lenkosi ibiphomisana kubani? You raise your hands. I'm giving you a chance now.
That's okay.
You are covered.
No, I'm not covered, but I was thinking of it.
No. We are relaxing you.
No, it's fine.
Why were you intimidated?
It's okay.
Okay. I hope you are not saying okay with a heavy heart. Okay.
Apologies if you've already responded to this question, but can I just have your reaction, the organization's reaction to the reshuffle itself?
we've done that.
And the second question is, apparently, the now former Minister of Higher Education is not in the country. And
Is not?
Is not in the country. And
No, he's in the country.
and furthermore,
I can tell you factually, he's in the country.
furthermore, the SACP now is saying that there was no consultation or not sufficient consultation with the SACP regarding the removal of the General Secretary of the SACP.
Hassan, I think you should take that offline because you are taking us back to a ground that we've covered in details.
All right,
Okay?
Do you see December, the elected conference in December, like a fork in the road, where things will be better after December, whoever is elected leader? Because this city season will be over, you will have a new leader, some of the scandal around Jacob Zuma will be put to one side. Do you think after December this is a chance for the ANC to sort out some of the problems?
This conference is not about Jacob Zuma. He's not contesting. He has done his 2-year, 2-term. So we're not going to a conference about Zuma, okay? Because that is the mistake that many organizations do. When they go to a conference, instead of being forward-looking and preparing for the future, they look backward and actually become flat-footed. So one of the things that we're trying to avoid is to avoid looking backward and make this a Zuma conference. It is not. We'll elect a new leadership. We're hoping the new leadership, to the best of their ability, will improve the standing of the ANC in society. But,
The issue of the MK Council and the versus MKMVA funding and not funding thereof. Is your office doing anything to try to, to address, to unify the structure, the two structures? Because according to them, everything has been left in office to deal with.
no, you see, the SGO is a dumping office. Okay. When you create a problem, you create it and then take it to the SGO. Okay. That's how it works. It's, we had an MKMVA conference. We gave 10 members of the NEC the responsibility of working with the preparatory team to that conference. Okay. And on the eve of that conference, that team said, no, postpone this. And the argument was, you can postpone it, but your cost of running that conference in the venue, the accommodation, you'll have to pay a lot, and it's called in government, what is it called? Wasteful expenditure. And that argument went on. And that conference went ahead. It came out, when they came out, people who are now in MK Council submitted an appeal, which we took to the NEC, and the NEC decided that let's attend to that appeal. To set up a parallel structure after that is actually responsible and divisive from where I'm seated. We should have focused on the appeal against that outcome and say, no, we think that we have issues with how that conference was organized, and deal with that issue. That would lead to unity better, rather than creating a counter force when you're not happy. Yes.
I'm just thinking of, about the issue of PEC because of that. Because, the people who took the PEC course say that they are accused of, they did appeal the president, and nothing, no action was taken to make sure that their issues were addressed up until they decided to go to court. I'm not thinking about what is anything from.
You are sitting, if you are sitting in my office, you'll know that when people write to me, I can share with you, they say you must respond within 7 days, others we're taking you to court. Now, when you run an organization on the basis of fear in going to court, you will not run an organization. You become a victim of fear. And that is one of the things that you must avoid in running a conversation because you'll miss it. That's why, with all those allegations in the court in KZN, the judges said all the irregularities you are claiming are not material. I hope you have read that judgment. Eh? I hope you have read it. If you have not read it, then you will ask irrelevant questions. That judgment says these irregularities, they are listed there, and the judgment says these irregularities, claimed irregularities, are not material to the outcome of it. That's why that court wants to invalidate that conference on the basis of Rule 17.2.1. I'm sure you have not read that as well. That is about 1/3 of the branches requesting a conference. Said, you held an early conference, you didn't ask 1/3 of the branches. That is the main argument. Now, that gives you a big distinction between the letters, this irregularity, that irregularity, which is blown out of proportion in the media, but the judgment says there was this alleged irregularity and this alleged irregularity, and the respondent have responded to these irregularities. They are not material. Then we're in court on the point of a constitutional provision of the ANC. That's it. It's a deal.
We said.